So, one of the issues I've found after a cult experience is indecision, being stuck in a rut. Which way do I go? What do I do? And staying at a point of indecision way too long, you know. But this is exactly what you would expect as a result of being in a what they call high control group, where the leaders decide where people live, the leaders decide who marries who or gets divorced, the leaders decide who is lost and who is saved. You know, these self-anointed prophets, you know. This is an image made by AI, and it's meant to be a tent at a point of a crossroads. So it's not quite a crossroads. I had 3 or 4 other images to choose from. And I chose this one, made a decision. But, you know, you can stay at a point of indecision and you're missing out. This is the thing. And one of the things I've noticed in my life and in the life of other people who have sort of left a cult is, you know, you just don't trust your own decisions anymore. Because, first of all, you made the wrong decision being part of a cult in the first place. That was a wrong decision that seemed like the right decision at the time. And this is such a big issue. It really is. Just this simple, well, I don't trust what I believe. I don't trust my decision making. And there are a lot of people who are just stuck in a rut. After being in a sort of high control situation, whether it was an abusive relationship, an abusive boss, an abusive religious group, whatever, even multi-level marketing, and you know, you just don't feel confident about making decisions. Therefore, you don't make decisions. Therefore, life can kind of pass you by. And it's actually extremely stressful not making decisions. Because, you know, let's say with this image, you've got a choice. You can go to the left or you can go to the right. And you're stuck in this, well, I don't know. I don't know, because I thought when I joined a group, it was a good thing and it was a bad thing. So you lose confidence in your decision making. It's not your fault. It's not your fault. These cultic type groups are very manipulative. They manipulate people's decision. They'll play the games like, well, this is what Jesus would want you to do, when it isn't. It's just what they want you to do. Or multi-level marketing. Well, you don't want to spend the rest of your life working a 9 to 5 that you don't enjoy, do you? So they'll always persuade you, you know, to go along with them or their God or their business that doesn't work. And for a lot of people, it ends in disaster. I mean, you could look at things like Jonestown, Heaven's Gate, Harold Camping cult, the Joshua Mackellar cult that is still going. They still think the rapture's going to happen this week. You know, Daniel Chung in his YouTube channel, and then next week it doesn't happen, and then they make another video. But the decision-making process, you know, I mean, even if you get a lot of people to help you make what seems like the right decision, there's no way to know the future. There is no way to know the future. You don't know what other things might happen. You know, there's these people who call themselves prophets. Well, if you're going to tell me what happens to me next week and it doesn't happen, or I can change it, you'll get run over next week. Right, well, I'm not going to go out next week then, am I? You know, and then they're wrong because I didn't get knocked over next week because I didn't go out. You know, so we don't know the future. And it's a little scary. It is a little scary. And into that little scary state of mind, you can just freeze up. There's a tent in this image. You can stay in the tent of indecision for as long as you like, which is a decision. That's another thing people say. By not making a decision, you've made the decision to not make a decision. And it's not a very nice situation to be in. So it does come back to building your confidence up again, realizing that not every decision you make will end up perfect anyway. I look at a lot of people that I know, and they seem to have been lucky in their life. They got the wife, they got the kids, they got the job, but you don't know what goes on behind the scenes. Sometimes you do, sometimes, arguing with the wife and fighting. And it's quite interesting that there were people who got married in the cult, ICOC and ICC, and quite a few of them have actually ended up getting divorced. But at the time, it seemed like the right thing, didn't it? Seemed like the right thing at the time, but it didn't work out for them, and then they make a decision to get married at the time, and then they make a decision to separate, And let's be honest, decisions, if you think you're 100% certain, well, maybe you're not. But then again, the thing that cults play on is, let's take a typical example. Well, this is your former life, and you were drunk and you were immoral and you whatever, and you're such a bad person, right? And then the cult comes along and brainwashes somebody, and then are they in a better off situation? Amazingly, no, they're not. No, they're not. Because somebody else is making the decisions and manipulating and threatening people with hell, what they should really be doing is empowering a person to make the best decisions they can for themselves, but not deciding what that decision will be. In the sort of ICOC, Kit McKean type cults, there's this thing called advice, but it's not advice, because if you don't take it, you get kicked out. So where's the advice? No, they've already made the decision. Here's some advice for you, but if you don't take it, you're going to go to hell, you're going against God, you're going against the Bible. So what are you, a robot that somebody else decides how your life will be? And let's be honest, thousands of years of human history have shown pharaohs and Caesars and Napoleons and Hitlers, and now people like Donald Trump or Putin or whoever, people who just come along and, they deceive people, they get into power, they invade Ukraine or they invade Iran or whatever, and hang on a minute, do we get a choice in this? Oh, no, there's no choice. It's just what the fascist dictator wants. And how does it work out? Never works out very well, does it? Putin hasn't conquered Ukraine, Trump hasn't conquered Iran, and he'll probably be impeached, or, Congress will go to the Democrats before there's any victory. So the thing about decisions, you can take your time, but if you take too much time, then sometimes that decision is taken out of your hands. I'm in my 50s, former cult member. I would have liked to have got married. I would have liked to have had a career. I would have liked to have had kids. I would have liked to have stayed in contact with friends and family from before the cult. But, here am I, an ex-cult member, and a lot of those decisions, they're not really viable anymore. It's a bit late in the day to think about getting a career or getting married or having kids, or the time has passed. The time has passed, and you get old and then you die. But one thing people say is, don't have any regrets. So, you know, I mean, I would, my advice to people would be really think about what you want. What do you want? Not what somebody else's wants or some imaginary man in the sky that no one can prove exists. You know, what do you want? What do you want to do? You know, and this is the thing, you make a decision, you do something, cause and effect. You know, one of the people I enjoy listening to is Brian Tracy. He talks about cause and effect, and you know, you don't get success right away. You know, you learn, you fail, you learn, you fail, you learn, then you succeed. And you learn that a lot of the things you do aren't going to work out. But if you keep on striving, you know, maybe you'll get success at the end of it. But yeah, you can stay in the valley of indecision as long as you like. So just move this around a little bit. So there we go. It was meant to be a crossroads. But it's good enough. It's do this way or do that way, you know. So yeah, cults do wreck your decision making process. They do. They do. Most people get damaged by cults. You know, disempowered. Disempowered. You have to do what the invisible pixie in the sky wants, or he'll throw you in the fire. Well, you might as well be a robot. Why didn't he make robots then, if he wants to make everybody's decision for them? So there you go, it is what it is. Hope somebody gets something out of this video.